This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net. And again, I am really excited about bringing you another Lessons Learned because a and I'm going to call him a very good friend of mine, even though we've only met once on Zoom, but we've been communicating a lot. Um, and Alan Bradley Licht from the Cleveland area, who is a musician. He's a songwriter. He's a producer. He's a little bit of everything. And I think he's like a fairy godfather as well, bringing people together. And he has connected me with Dani Felt. And I am really excited about this because the more I read about you and listen to your music, it's like, why haven't I heard about her before? And so now I want to make sure everybody knows who you are. So, welcome to New Cleveland Radio. Uh, and for those of you wondering, Dani is in Nashville, Tennessee, where Music City, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, what took you to Nashville? Let's start there.
Oh boy, that's like a very long story. I would say I started because I went to a CD Baby conference in Nashville a few years ago, and I fell in love with Nashville. I was like, this is so incredible. But then I started watching the TV show Nashville as well, and that also inspired me so much, just seeing all these different songwriters and just like this community of people that are like following their passion. Even though it was like a fictional show, it was just like it just really inspired me. And then I don't know how woo-woo you want me to get.
Oh, as much as you want.
So I went to this psychic fair, and I sat down with this woman, and she specialized in people, in channeling messages from people that passed away. And like randomly, she said to me, like her brother that passed away, or cousin, I forget, like someone in her family passed away and used to live in Nashville. And he told her to tell me to consider moving there. And it was so funny because at the time I was like gonna move to Boston, because I was making friends with people there. And so I was like really thinking about where I can live in Boston, but Nashville was always like my other thought. I think the only reason I didn't want to move there was because you needed a car, because I technically like don't really drive, which is interesting. But I decided to follow that. So I then came here for my birthday to record Queen, which is like the single I did like last year. And so like full circle, I ended up finding my roommate through coming here for my birthday, because I ran into my friend that I haven't seen in like 6 years from a music conference in
Oh,
LA. And she
wow.
just happened to move here like a month before. And like something I did triggered something with her and her roommate, because she was living with someone that was toxic. So like I don't know what I did, but I told her to do something. And then a week later, she's like, Dani, you can come live with me. Like my roommate's leaving. And I was like, all right, I guess this is the sign.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you bring that up because um, we do another podcast every 2 weeks called The Intentionality Gurus. And that show is about personal coaching in so many different aspects. And one of the things that we talked about yesterday was that we might say things aren't happening, and we don't understand why they're not happening. And a lot of times it's because we're walking through life with blinders on and we think things can only happen a certain way. But once we sort of like move those blinders, we start seeing opportunities and we wonder, well, where did this all come from? But a lot of it is because we're allowing ourselves to be aware and to be open. Um, and so it probably wasn't necessarily by chance this happened. The two of you had taken off blinders and started looking, and it just worked out. So that's wonderful.
Mhm.
Excited to hear
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, like everything kind of aligned when I moved here. like I definitely felt like I was meant to come to Nashville, and it's just been an incredible adventure. And I've met so many incredibly talented people that I just see as my friends now and don't even think twice about it of how talented they are. It's almost like I take for granted like how many talented people I'm around, because when you're in Nashville, it's like such a given. Like, of course they're good, you know. So it's been really interesting. Yeah.
So we've been doing these type of interviews now for 4 years, and one of the things that I see in the music community, and I'm not talking about necessarily, the Celine Dion's and the Katy Perry's. They may be as open and inviting, but we don't see that, okay? But other musicians in Nashville and in upstate New York and even here in Cleveland, they all work together. They're all supportive of each other. It's not like, oh my gosh, that person is going to get more gigs than me. But
Mhm.
hey, that person is really good. And if that person likes me, maybe, I'll work with them or maybe they'll refer me to somebody else. So do you have any concept why we see that in the music industry where we don't see it in just about any other industry?
Why people collaborate more like in the
Yeah,
music industry? I feel like it's kind of beneficial to work with other people for themselves too, you know, because when you're cross promoting with other people, because people like naturally do things for themselves. So if you're bringing an opportunity just to find more of an audience for other people through other artists, or you need someone that's a great producer, selfishly, like you need that really great producer, or you really need that guitar player that can come up with that thing, you know, and then they can help you. It's like mutually beneficial, you know, as opposed to, I guess, other industries, they might be independent and they might not necessarily need other people. Although I think collaborating with people is like so powerful, but it's also about finding the right people, like the right energy, the right people with the right intentions, because you can introduce me to a ton of people, but if they're like not on my like wavelength, it's going to be like really difficult for me to be able to like work with them,
sure.
you know. So I think it's just about finding like the right tribe, people finding the right people, and then maybe in other industries they will collaborate more. But yeah, in music, it's definitely like we're kind of all in this together, you
And
know, compared to like the big artists,
right.
you know. But I think in general, cross promoting and collaborating is just smart. You know, it's smart business in my opinion.
Well, what I love about it is that um, you often see a change amongst the artists and a good change. You may have thought that this is, the only way that I can perform this, or this is the only way that I can write this. And yet, when you're collaborating, somebody might make just a slight suggestion, and maybe that's not the path you go, but it then triggers something else in you and says, "Wait a second, I have an even better idea." Um, and a lot of us have learned that, when we've looked at music history, that, a lot of big groups, specifically the Beatles, did that. They'd sit down and think, well, we're going to just put this out in 5 minutes because we got this idea. But then all of a sudden it was like, well, wait a second, let's try this. Let's try this. Um, and I'm seeing that in all forms of art. Um, I'm working with a couple of artists right now, painters, and um, they'll send me something to put in their gallery, and I'll load it up, and we're talking about it. Next thing I know, it's like, no, I revised it. Here it is. And it's like, okay. And then maybe a month later, because their vision has changed and their vision typically has shown that it gets bigger and better each time. So you're in Nashville. What is the performing like down there, especially with
I
the
mean,
pandemic?
Broadway right now, sorry. Broadway right now is like open, and you know, a lot of people are starting to get back into live music, and it's really inspiring to me. I just love seeing people happy and seeing people do what they love, and we need music like so much, you know, and I've never appreciated being around live music so much in my life, you know, as to now. And so I feel like that's actually going to benefit the music industry a lot, because in the past, people took advantage so much of hearing live music, and everyone just talked over everything and no one really cared as much, and they just took it for granted. And I feel like now people are really like, wow, like music's freaking powerful. Like we need you guys. So yeah, it's been, I think it's been pretty cool here.
So now that the pandemic is sort of hopefully coming to an end in some ways, more places, like you said, are opening up. There are more venues to perform. Um, what do you think that looks like? I know for the last year, so many of you, I mean, had no income coming in. Um, and the only venues you played were a Zoom concert, a Facebook concert. How do you see that change coming about now?
I think people are gonna start just doing live music again. I've seen it, like I definitely think that's coming back for sure. I think it's gonna be a really interesting time, like because it's it's hard to know just about everyone's history of everything. And so it's very much on like what you feel is right to do or not to do, or where you want to go or where you don't want to go, or who you want to hang out with. But ultimately, I think people are just so tired of just being home and just like feeling like they're in like this imprisoned like thing, that they just want to like take the chance to like live their life and like see people and like just be social and be around humans. And we all like are here to be together. It's, we're not meant to just be isolated like beings like all by ourselves. Like we all affect each other and inspire each other. And yeah.
I know it's been extremely difficult for me this past year, as I have shared on other shows. Um, I had knee surgery 1 week before we went to lockdown here in Cleveland, and I
Oh
knew
wow.
I was going to have 6 to 8 weeks of recovery. So the first 6 to 8 weeks didn't really affect me that much. But then when I was really able to get up and around and I was going out for physical therapy, that impact hit me. And it was like, you know, I can't use that equipment until it's wiped down. And then when I'm done with that equipment, I have to wipe it down. And here I was working out wearing a mask and just felt like, is this ever going to come to an end? And then I got used to it. Okay. And, um, it was no big deal to put on a mask to go to the grocery store. We still had some venues open here with small audiences. I went to those. But yesterday was the first time I was out in public without a mask. And as good as it also felt very scary. Um, so for you that, maybe haven't been in front of an audience for a year, how do you think that's going to feel?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple like music things recently, but in general, I think some people will still wear a mask and then some people won't, and it will just be like a mix depending on like what they feel. So it's like hard for me to like say exactly. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, I want to definitely wear one, and then other times I'm like, I feel okay, like I'm outside, like I'm walking. So I think it just really is gonna vary.
So it's almost going to become normal wearing one or not wearing one. We're all going to just intermingle and just get back to life, which is really what
That's
we all
that's
want
what
to
I'm
do.
picturing.
So tell us a little bit about your music. What is the flavor of music you bring to the stage?
The flavor of music, I love that question. Um, so with me, everything I do, I want to be intentional with. So as far as music, I want to make sure that any song I put out there is like helping people feel something, whether it's like empowered, inspired, sad. Like I just want them to feel alive. And so I want it to really move them. It's not that I don't want it to be catchy, because it's great to have catchy songs, but I really want music that people are going to feel. And it's funny because my last name is Felt. So I just feel like I'm meant to have people feel through my music. And so Yeah, I mean, Queen, I released last summer, and that was about um, female empowerment, like stepping into my sexuality and just like being like, I'm here, hear me roar, like women can do everything, like, you know, don't be ashamed of this and that, and just be confident and just love yourself. And just, it was just like a very like positive song. And then my next single, which we're mastering like right now, it's called Unapologetic, and it actually has a rap in it. It's really cool. And it's about telling people that I'm tired of people messing with me and to stop. And it's basically about like self-respect and like tired of just being the nice person that people can just take advantage of, which I'm sure so many people can relate to.
Absolutely.
So I guess to answer your question, just anything that's going to empower people, music that empowers, inspires, and moves people and like makes people excited. Like I've gotten a text saying like, "Oh my God, your music really helped me through depression," or this other woman said like, "Your music really helped me get through things and like it really helped inspire me." So that's why I do it, you know, to help people feel, to help transcend people's lives. I mean, that's just powerful.
You know, it's interesting. Before I got into podcasting, I was working at a college, and I was in admissions, and almost everyone who walked through my door wanted to be a nurse. And when you'd ask why they wanted to be a nurse, they would say, "Oh, I just love helping people." And, in the beginning, I just sort of like let that go. Yeah, okay, that's what nurses do. And then I finally started saying, but there's other ways to help people. I'm helping you because we need to find out really what is the path that's going to really suit you. You may like helping people, but maybe you can do it a different way other than nursing. And they'd look at me and go, well, who else helps people? And I remember one day my brother, who is a music producer, had shared um, something with me, and I was listening to it, and I had it on my computer at work, and I played it. And this student just started sobbing. And the first thing she said was, "No, I don't want to be a nurse." And I said, "So then
Mm.
what do you want to do?" And she thought about it and she said, "I love teaching." And I said, "Well, then, hey, we got to change things, okay? Because going into nursing, you may teach along the way, but for the most part, that's not going to happen." And so I love what you're doing with your music because indirectly, you're going to be hitting people with words and sounds that's going to say, huh, now I know what it is I need to do or what I want to do. And I saw a quote of yours out on the website, and you said, "We all want to feel empowered, embrace our sexuality with confidence, and I want to show women that they can." And I love that because so many women, even more than men, walk around using the words, "I can't," whatever it is.
I mean, I'll be honest. I just did a boudoir shoot, which I can't even pronounce right. And that was the most empowering, liberating experience ever. And I feel like it goes so much with my message, of just like stepping into your self-love and your confidence and not body shaming yourself and just being like, I can take these pictures and like I can feel confident without feeling like pressured by men about it. And all these things, and doing this for myself. And if I choose to post them, it's for myself. It's not to, impress one person or do whatever, and I feel like women are so suppressed, and we're so taught to just like hide our sexuality and hide all these things and like be this like nice person that just does whatever and is only the mother. And and I'm like, no, like step into your power. Like women are powerful. We are powerful manifestors. We are powerful channels of so much messages and abundance and love. And like, when we step into that, when we feel empowered, that's when we can really transform our lives. And then we start transforming other people's lives just from us stepping into our own power. It's like when we change, we shift everyone around us. We don't have to force people to change. We don't have to push people, because when we do that, it's like the opposite effect. But when people see us, they're like, how'd you do that? like, you look so good doing this. Like, what are you doing? What's your secret? And just, yeah, stepping into your power is extremely important.
Well, prior to this podcast, I was talking to another female musician, and she admitted to me afterwards, she said that she opened up in such a way on the podcast that normally she wouldn't have. But she's glad that she did. She said, "You made me feel comfortable." And that was empowering to me. I was just doing what I do naturally. But again, if I can touch myself or one person, um, I- I've done a marvelous thing for the day. And it's not by going out and telling other people that you should be performers, you shouldn't be performers, you shouldn't live in Tennessee, you should go out to, California and make your mark. No. Okay. We all know what works for us, but sometimes we have to, listen to ourselves. So, where did you come from that you ended up in Tennessee? Where
Outside, sorry,
it's okay.
outside Philly.
So from Philadelphia, you thought about Boston, you thought about Tennessee. Philadelphia is nothing like Tennessee. Um, uh, and I can understand in Philadelphia, you really don't need a car because public transportation is abundant in the area. At least it was when I lived there many years ago. Um, but you mentioned coming to Nashville, it's not as easy to get around.
No, you absolutely need a car. And actually, I went from Philly and graduated from school in Connecticut and then Maine, and then moved to New York. So I was in New York for 2 years. I think it was 2 years, maybe longer. And I got really used to not driving because we could just take the train.
Sure.
But it just got really intense there, and I had to come home. And so I took a break and then decided what's my next step. And I stayed home for a year, and I ended up creating an online course somehow, like through that, because I just had time to do that. And yeah, and then I moved to Nashville, and yeah, it's not not easy how to lift when I have to, or make friends with people that drive. So it's been interesting, but it's totally worth it. I mean, there's so many amazing people here.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. So tell us how we can find your music.
Sure. You can just go on Spotify and look up Dani Felt, DaniFelt. My newest song is called Queen, which is like at least a year old. So it's technically not that new, but I'm working on a ton of new stuff. So as soon as it's out, I will definitely let you know. But you can just go on Instagram, Dani Felt Music, my company, Music Industry Mastery. You can go DaniFeltmusic.com, DaniFelt.com, like all of it.
Well, we definitely are going to follow you. We hope that you will come back on when your next new hit hits us all. And I do want to recommend to people, um, you know, if you're listening to this and you say, I never heard of Dani Felt before, well, that's okay. That's why we had her on today, because we want you to know who she is. We want you to know what's going on in the industry. And, if that's the step you want to take, you too can do it because Dani says, we are empowered. And I appreciate that. Any last words for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, never let someone else defer you from your dreams. Do what you want to do, no matter what. Follow your intuition because it will lead you far, and look for signs because sometimes the universe sends you signs that are like showing you you're not on the right path. So don't ignore those. Like, really pay attention and set intentions, and really visualize what you want and go take action steps. Even if it's small steps, you can do it. It just takes one step at a time. So go for it.
Absolutely. Great lessons learned. And I hope our listeners um, have picked up on some of it. And I think when you listen to Dani's music, you are going to be touched. So, again, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care
Thank you
now.
so much.
Thank you. Bye bye now.
Bye.